Congress passed the biggest housing bill in 20 years. This video is part one. Something big has happened in Washington, and surprisingly, it wasn't another political fight. Congress has just passed what many are calling the most significant housing legislation in nearly 20 years. Now, before you click away because you hear the words housing bill and think this is going to be boring, this bill could affect home buyers, homeowners, renters, investors, real estate agents, and pretty much anyone who cares about housing affordability. The bill has now passed Congress, and constitutionally, it is now the law of the land. But what exactly is in it? Will it actually help lower housing costs? And could this be the beginning of meaningful change in the housing market? Today, I'm going to break down what happened, why it matters, and what you need to know moving forward. Hey everyone, this is David Hittle, your Kentucky real estate specialist, member of Shop Kentucky Homes LLC with United Real Estate Louisville. On this channel, I talk about real estate housing market updates, whether that is buying and selling strategies and what is actually happening in the market here in Kentucky and across the country. So if you enjoy straightforward housing news without all the fear and political noise, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. I conveniently placed it down in the lower right-hand corner. Why Congress has finally acted. Let's start with the obvious question. Why now? Why is Congress suddenly focused on housing? Because housing affordability has become one of the biggest challenges facing Americans today. For years, we have watched home prices rise, mortgage rates increase, rents climb, and inventory remain tight. Many young buyers feel locked out of home ownership. Many renters feel trapped by rising housing costs. And even current homeowners have watched affordability become a growing concern for friends, family members, and future generations. So, regardless of political affiliation, lawmakers have increasingly recognized that America has a housing supply problem. Simply put, there are not enough homes being built to meet long-term demand for homes. And when supply stays low while demand remains strong, prices tend to rise. That is one of the major reasons housing affordability has become such a challenge over the last several years. So what is this bill trying to do? That's an important thing to understand. This bill is not some magical solution that suddenly makes homes affordable overnight. No legislation could do that. Instead, the goal is to address some of the underlying problems contributing to housing shortages. The legislation focuses on several major areas: increasing housing supply, reducing unnecessary barriers to development, supporting affordable housing initiatives, expanding housing opportunities, strengthening local lending options, and encouraging more construction. In other words, the goal is to not artificially lower prices. That would be bad. The goal is to make it easier to create more homes. Because over the long run, more supply is going to be one of the most effective ways to improve affordability. So why this is different from most housing headlines? Well, one reason I think this story matters is because it addresses something that often gets overlooked. Most housing conversations focus on mortgage rates. And don't get me wrong, mortgage rates absolutely matter. But rates are only part of the affordability equation. The bigger issue is supply. If there are not enough homes available, people compete for the homes that do exist. That drives prices higher. So while everyone watches interest rates every week, many housing economists have argued for years that increasing inventory is the real long-term solution. That is why this legislation has received so much attention from housing professionals. It is focused on the supply side of the equation. So what does this mean for home buyers? Well, if you are a home buyer, you're obviously probably asking, does this mean homes are about to get cheaper? And honestly, the answer is probably not immediately. The housing market moves slowly. Construction takes time. Development takes time. Infrastructure takes time. Government programs take time. This is more about long-term improvements than short-term changes. But if the bill successfully encourages more housing development, more inventory could eventually mean more choices, less competition, more balanced negotiations, and improved affordability. Those are all positive developments for future buyers. So what does this mean for homeowners? Now homeowners will often hear housing legislation and immediately start worrying, is this going to hurt my home value? The answer is probably not. Healthy housing markets need balance. Most experts are not calling for home prices to crash. Instead, the goal is to create a more sustainable market, one where buyers can actually buy, sellers can build equity, builders have opportunity to construct homes, and communities can continue growing. That is very different from trying to artificially force prices lower. So what does all this mean here in Kentucky? Bringing this closer to home, here in Kentucky, we've seen many of the same affordability challenges that have affected the rest of the country. So whether we're looking in Louisville or Shelbyville, Brandenburg or E-Town, Bullitt County or Lexington, inventory remains one of the biggest conversations that we're having in real estate. Many communities are continuing to grow. Populations are shifting, and buyers are still competing for desirable homes in many price ranges. If legislation like this helps encourage additional housing development over the next several years, those effects could eventually be felt here locally as well. Not overnight, but over time. So what happens next? Well, Congress has passed the bill. The next step was President Trump's signature. However, President Trump said he was not going to sign the bill. Per the Constitution, the bill became law automatically because he did not sign a veto. So the legislation has been passed and it is officially the law of the land. Now it is up to the departments to execute it successfully. That is something entirely different. That's why I'll be following this story closely, and over my next several videos, I will break down specific sections of the bill in much greater detail. including whether this could actually lower prices, what it means for Kentucky buyers, what it means for homeowners, the impact on investors, and some surprising provisions that haven't received much media attention. So while this housing bill is not a magic wand, it is one of the most significant housing actions Congress has taken in years. And because the housing affects nearly everyone, it is worth understanding what is happening and why. If you are thinking about buying or selling anywhere around Louisville or throughout Kentucky or anywhere in the world, I would love the opportunity to help. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow for more real-world housing market updates. This is David Hittle, your Kentucky real estate specialist, member, Shop Kentucky Homes LLC with United Real Estate Louisville, and I'll see you for part 2 of this housing bill series.